Oh, hi, my name is Nozi. I'll be presenting to you a book by David Huston. He writes about healing. Well, I really thought this book was like sort of like one of my timely books because of the season that I'm coming out from, the season where I've been physically unwell. I at that time began to wonder and have so many questions about why my healing was not coming or why I was um, not getting better but actually deteriorating in states both physically and emotionally, why I was getting drained. So I chose this book because it speaks to me and spoke to me in the past season that I'm coming from. And um, I wish I had found it actually during my time of illness, because now when I'm finding it, like I found it like almost a month ago, when I'm finding it and reading it now for this class. I wish I found it much sooner. Well, nevertheless, I won't spend much time dwelling on that, but I really enjoyed this book and I trust you enjoy this presentation that I'm going to share with you. Firstly, David Houston writes from a more theological, biblical studies approach. This I say because he draws most of his examples from the New Testament and the Old Testament. For an example, he begins to explain to us or show examples from the New Testament, like in Mark 1:41, where he says he was moved with compassion. Jesus was moved with compassion and stretched out his hand and healed someone. In Matthew 8:15, he says, so he touched her and the fever left her. In Matthew 9:29, it says, touch their eyes, saying also, according to your faith, let it be. If only, and then in Matthew 9:21, he says, if only I may touch the garment, I shall be made well. Of course, this is the woman with the flow of blood. Now, I just like the examples that he's drawing from to show us how Jesus healed or how the healings happened in the book of the New Testament. Point number one, according to what I picked up on, was Jesus Christ is infused with magnificent healing power, a power far superior to anything man has to offer, and this is readily available when you touch or reach out to him. So the first thing that Houston makes us understand is that healing is something that Jesus has. It's embodied in Jesus. It's in the spirit. It's like it's in the Holy Spirit. Like there is healing, an undoubtable healing. The second point he makes is many people struggle to believe that God can actually heal them, yet they agree that He is God. He can do everything and anything. For example, so what he's saying is, how come then we all know that Jesus is a healer, but when we fall sick or become unwell, we sort of pause and say, yes, he's a healer, but let me just go to the doctor, or you probably ask God to heal you, but you sort of don't believe that you can partake of your healing immediately. Now, I find this interesting because this is a place I've been to where I knew that he's a healer. I knew about his healing power. God has used me in the previous years in my ministry to pray for people and they recovered. But when I became sick, like I felt like I could not embody the same faith that I expect people to have while I minister to them. And he uses James 1:7, says it's useless for us to even ask God for any healing or healing for anything if we do not have faith or have doubt in our hearts. This is probably why healing does not come to us. Um, he further says, struggling to believe that is really God's will for you to be healed, then you may be concentrating too much on your illness and not enough on Christ. So he says maybe the reason why we're struggling is because we're concentrating so much on our exceptional condition. Like I was diagnosed with malfunction of organs. I was assumed to be having early stages of cancer. They said that if my treatment, my sickness was not going to be healed, it was going to turn itself into a cancer. And I believe I dwelt so much on that, and my eyes were never on Christ. And this is what Houston, this author, is also pointing us to. Well, maybe the reason why our healings are delaying is because our focus is more on it's more on the sickness more than on the power of Christ. And when he moves on to the Old Testament and healings, he points us to the promise that is made to the children of Israel. Here, God makes promise to the children of Israel and says, "Never shall He put the illness or the sicknesses of Egypt upon His children." And today, because we can also claim those promises, Huston says we should walk in that knowledge, knowing that God promised never to put the diseases and the sicknesses of Egypt upon us. And then he also makes an example, says the word for healing in Exodus 15:26. It makes us understand that this word, the word to heal in the Hebrew, in the text, Exodus 15:26, means to cure, to repair, to make whole. And then in Psalm 103, it says, "Forgive all your iniquities, and who heals all your diseases." So the same word is used, but the Lord is the one who makes His children whole. So in every healing situation, or if we are to ever expect healing, we should make or understand clearly that it is not I that heals, but Christ who makes me completely whole. Now, this does not eliminate the condition, because according to the story of the children of Israelites, there is a condition upon the healing. He says, if they shall heed to the voice of God and they shall follow according to His commands and statutes, then they shall be made well. Is my life, am I living in perfect accordance, or am I in alignment with the word of God or His Spirit, while I require healing in my life? I'm not saying we should just act up or have a phase whereby we live extra holy, but our lives generally should be guided by the principles and the commandments of God. Am I taking us back to the Old Testament, whereby, well, you had to follow the commandments of God and the laws of the Leviticus and all that? No, this is not what Huston gets into. What he gets into is that any healing comes with a condition. Our healing, while Jesus in the New Testament readily avails healing, there is always a condition before or for us to get healed. In Exodus 23:25 says, "I will take sickness away from the midst of you." There are no guarantees for the unbeliever and the half-hearted, but for those who are totally committed to God. So if we are to be totally committed to God, our healing is secured. God promises is sure, and God cannot lie. Not one of His words has ever failed. Every promises He makes to His people is a sure thing. That is one fun fact that I enjoy to know, that, well, God has this promise for us and I need to claim it. Like He says, bring me into remembrance of my promises, bring me into remembrance of what I have said I will do for you. Now we know God does not forget, but this is for you. This is for me as a Christian to grasp and to read and embrace what God has, like continue to speak those promises upon my life, so that I know what is rightfully mine. Because in the New Testament says in First Corinthians, to know that which is given to you by the Spirit freely. Now, if you don't know that what is given to us freely, we will never walk in it. Now, there was a question. Now, from now on, he uses the question and conversation dialogue, whereby he asks a question of his readers to say, for an example, why would a good and loving God afflict His own children with terrible sickness? Now, I love this part, because he says, according to Hebrews 12 verse 5-6, this is because God chastises His children. Well, I don't know how I feel about the chastisement, but I know that in any home we need rules and regulations, like we need the laws to keep order and all that. So for him, chastisement is a form of punishment for us to draw nigh and be reminded to come back into God's house. That sounds very not so nice to hear, but I really think that it's an important part that we should consider, that some of the illnesses that we have are because of chastisement. However, this is not should not be the case, because we saw that in the story of Job, when his friends thought he should repent from his sins, God made them pay for assuming that he was living in sin. They had taken the retribution, because retribution theology is whereby you say someone has sinned and they are getting what is due to them. Now, this is not what Huston is saying, but he said, well, sometimes chastisement is the reason why sometimes, in some occasions, the illnesses and the sicknesses that are upon us are because we're not in right standing with God. At some point in my time when I was unwell, I did question, was it because I was not in right standing with God? This is what the first reason why Huston thinks maybe we are unwell or need healing. Secondly, he says, does God work through doctors and physicians to bring about healing? And he makes an example of 2 Corinthians 16 verse 12. And in the year of his reign, Asa became diseased in his feet, and he was severely unwell. Yet in his disease he did not seek the Lord, but the physicians. So Asa rested with his fathers. That's the consequent verse, whereby Asa, this king, was unwell and he did not seek God, but he sought after the physicians. Now, I like his point. Well, I don't know if I completely embrace that we should not be reliant upon medical doctors, as this is what the point that Huston is making, because I remember also in my time of health, I relied so much on the voice of the doctor in such an extent that when I got home, I did not even have faith enough to know that God was going to heal me and take me away from this condition. So I believe the report of the doctor. It says, whose report shall you believe? And I lead more closely to the belief, to the report that I had been given by the doctor. Excuse me. In Jeremiah 8:22, there's an example whereby where is the balm of the Gilead, so that the people may be well. Proverbs 17:22 speaks about medicine as a good thing, whereby your heart needs medicine. Sickness is punishment. No matter what treatment you take, you may not recover or escape temporarily. So now, if sickness is like a punishment, what usually happens is that you will get the pain of being unwell. But then if it is coming because you are walking not uprightly with God, what's going to happen is that even after the doctors make the symptoms and the pain go away, you will not fully be restored. This is how we develop chronic illnesses, according to Huston. Now, Huston also asks two interesting questions. He says, have you been worshiping God with all your heart in spite of your condition? Usually in times of illness, at least in my experience, I reduce the time of prayer, time of word, time of everything. And so he says this may be the reason why your healing is delaying. Am I willing to serve God in whatever way he desires me to come into the presence to get full healing? Like, am I ready to leave everything and worship God? Usually you're more reluctant to serve, you don't have time, maybe because you are now ailing and really physically unwell. Because I remember I wanted to go to church, I was just throwing up and all that, and have to come back all the way from school and just remain in the dormitories instead of going to church. Now, what he's saying is have you in your heart, has you also continued to worship and love God despite your condition, or you have cursed God because of your unwell state? What Huston then reminds us is, well, remember, in all the healings that happen in the New Testament through Jesus, or even the disciples that he raised, they never needed a surgeon or any medical medication to go with that. They were made well at the spot. Now, if this is the case, that means even today we need to walk in that. We need to be able to walk without going to the doctor and everything else. Furthermore, he says, all disciples, everyone is, because we're all Christians. First of all, Jesus gives the healing power to the disciples and the 70. But in the New Testament, in Mark 16, we see him say, "Go unto all the world, and you shall meet the sick, and they shall recover. And you, as you pray for them, they shall recover." Meaning, every Christian. That mandate in Mark 16:8 is for every Christian, as the one that is in Matthew 28 and 18 to 19, whereby we are called to go into all the nations. We should go with that healing power, healing virtue within us, and be able to change people's lives by that healing virtue. So it is for everyone, not only the pastors, not only the priests, but according to Huston, for every Christian, you can walk in healing. He acknowledges the 1 Corinthian, whereby everyone has their different giftings, like the gifting of faith, the gifting of healing. But then he says all of us, or at least within the congregation that you're in, there should be one who walks in the healing ministry. Well, also moving on, what Houston also says as we come to a close of this healing subject, he says you have to be pushy. You have to have a faith that is pushy, like the crowds in Mark 3 verse 10. What he's saying is the woman of with the flow of blood understood that she could not remain in the condition that she was in. She wanted more. She wanted liberation. She wanted liberty from that state. So she pushed. She made sure she pushes her faith. Today, are we just reluctant in our faith, or just wait for God half-heartedly, not really sure if He's going to do it or not? We need to be more proactive in our process of healing. Perhaps, he says, perhaps you have not fought your own way through the crowd of medical negativism to reach out and touch Jesus like the woman with the flow of blood. Now, after my diagnosis, I really just sort of sat and was ready for anything. I knew God would heal me. Every now and then I would feel a touch, a difference, but I never embraced that He would fully touch me. Now, when I got back home, I remember praying to God, and I was like, God, I need my healing. I need you to restore me, and only you can do it. I know I'm supposed to go to the specialist. I know I'm supposed to do all that, but all I need is for you to pray to heal me. And I remember praying, and I took time in fasting, and I remember God healed me and delivered me, because it was, as Houston next says, what is the cause of sickness? And he says there are 3 causes. Could be the organic causes, whereby you have infections, bad environment, ill eating habits, or any of that. But he secondly says there are spiritual causes. The spiritual causes can come from bitterness, not right standing with God, anxiety, depression, and the third one could be a spiritual demonic attack. And I believe my category would be just a spiritual demonic attack, because in as much as I was diagnosed all of that, once I began to pray and take authority in the spiritual realm, I never was sick another day. I received complete healing and restoration. And so thus the method and the book by Huston becomes really personal for me, because I literally stopped going the medical way and took up to God and His promise, and I am a living testimony of Him eliminating every sickness. I could not eat properly. I could not take certain types of food, but I could not. I had a pain in my stomach after the surgery, and then I asked God that this surgery that I was going to take be the last of it. And after the surgery, my body was restored. Now, I'm not suggesting that from today people don't go to doctors, because I did go But I want, even at the back of your mind, as we engage with doctors, we know that the healing power and the strength and everything really comes from God, and everything else is just leading to what God promises. This is sort of my understanding of the book and how personally I engaged it. One last thing is, in Africa now we have so many people dying because the pastor said no, you shouldn't go to the doctor, you have to have faith. And we've had so many unwarranted deaths because people have not gone to the doctor. So this is definitely what I'm suggesting, and this is where I differ with Houston as a scholar. But I would say take what he says with a pinch of salt, in the sense that believe that God will fully give you the healing, but also do not be stupid in that if the faith factor is also important. If your faith won't be enough to sustain and bring about your healing, make sure you take care of it medically.